Coin-operated video games made their first appearance in the early 1970s. While the simple control schemes and blocky graphics seem crude by today's standards, these games were, at the time, groundbreaking. This is the story of video games during the black and white era. Many people remember Pong as the first coin-operated video game. It was the first successful game, but it was preceded by another game. Computer Space. Computer Space was designed by Ted Dabney and Nolan Bushnell, who would go on to become the founders of Atari. The sleek fiberglass cabinet made the game appear futuristic and technologically advanced. A quick look at the insides revealed a different story. The gameplay of Computer Space is somewhat like the game Asteroids, which would be produced by Atari almost 9 years later, but at the time, it was too complex. With the failure of Computer Space and the success of Pong, the lesson learned was simple is better. This led to a game called Canyon Bomber. The user interface was the ultimate in simplicity, a single button, to time the dropping of bombs from aircraft. Canyon Bomber could be played by a single player battling against the computer, or by two players battling against each other, talking smack, bumping each other, and just generally having a great time. The success of Canyon Bomber as a coin-operated game led to its inclusion as one of the titles for the Atari Video Computer System, or 2600. One of the first driving games was called Night Driver. In order to create an effective gaming experience using the limited processing power at the time, only the reflectors of the road were shown. This approach made Night Driver one of the most successful games of the black and white era. Fire Truck had two players cooperating with each other to get a higher score, rather than competing. Some of the same gameplay mechanics that were used with Fire Truck were reused for Superbug, placing your beetle in the center of the screen with a world that scrolled around it. During the black and white era, Atari produced several sports games, a one-on-one basketball game, 2 baseball games, and a football game that introduced a new control feature, the trackball. In Atari football, players would alternate between playing offense and defense and would select from 4 different plays. They used their trackball controller to control one of the players, and the rest of the players were controlled by the computer. The players were represented by X's and O's, like a chalkboard diagram. The game Pool Shark had very little in common with an actual game of pool. Checkmate, and a number of games like it, were the inspiration for the Light Cycles game in the movie Tron. Cops and Robbers was one of a number of games that used tinted transparent strips to create the illusion of color. The game Crash by Exidy was another example of the colored transparency trick. Depth Charge was the name of this game, which placed the black silhouette of a ship against a white sky. The white submarines lurking in the depths below were conveniently numbered with the values of their scores. I don't think I understand why someone would choose to skydive in a sky filled with helicopters, but that's the challenge in Exidy's Ripcord. This bowling game from the mid-1970s was called Robot Bowl. A little bit ironic that one of the places video games were found was inside bowling alleys. The computer-controlled opponent at Atari's Ultra Tank was one of the earliest examples of artificial intelligence. This is Atari's Starship 1, although the text on the screen read Starship Atari. Games set in outer space worked well during the black and white era, as the blackness of space was punctuated by dots of light from faraway stars. This game was obviously designed to appeal to Star Trek fans, although I never quite understood why you would be rewarded for targeting Federation vessels. At the end of the game, Starship One would try to provoke another round with the humorous text message of, "Sensors detect another quarter in your pocket." The effect of an aerial perspective was created in a very interesting way in Atari's Sky Raider. Perhaps the most well-remembered game from the black and white era was Space Invaders. Designed and produced by Taito in Japan, it was distributed by Midway in the United States. To enhance the graphics, the game was often placed into a cabinet with a mirrored background, or displayed on a screen with tinted transparent strips, or both. The effect of the aliens speeding up as they became fewer in number was actually a side effect of the limitations of the microprocessor. After seeing how this effect added to the intensity at the end of the round, the designers decided to leave it in as a feature. The end of the 1970s saw the introduction of vector graphics-based games such as Lunar Lander, Asteroids, and Battlezone. In the early 1980s, video game arcades became filled with colorful games such as Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, and Galaxian. The black and white era had come to an end.